This is 1 in 36, a presentation of the Anderson Center for Autism. 1 in 36 is a weekly show devoted to autism spectrum disorder.
Good morning and welcome to 1 in 36, the weekly talk show on topics related to autism spectrum disorder. I'm your host, Eliza Bozensky, Chief Development Officer at Anderson Center for Autism. And today I'm very pleased to be speaking with Lotus Kay. Lotus is a singer-songwriter, poet, and award-winning children's book author who has been published in a variety of media outlets. She's the author of the children's books More Beautiful Than Heaven, Billy the Octopus, A Thanksgiving for the Turkeys, Jenny the Chimpanzee, and Friends Lift You Up, which are about themes such as caring for the earth and wildlife and creating a more compassionate world. And I know, Lotus, that there's a lot more that you're going to share with us about those books, what your inspiration is, some of the music that you write, and some of the things that you're going to be doing locally here in and around Dutchess County. But first, I'd like to say welcome to the show and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
We heard about you primarily through a contact we have at Dutchess County, in the Dutchess County legislature, and she does a lot of community outreach and is very involved with, I think, anybody similar to me and this show. We love to talk to anybody doing good things in the world and in the field that touches, for me anyway, autism and the autistic community in some capacity. When I read about you and went on your website and looked at some of the books and saw that people like Jane Goodall were, writing about you and aware of what you were doing, and knowing that you were local, I really was excited to get to know you a little bit better. So if I could, can I just ask you to maybe tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, maybe how old you are and when you got started in both writing and your musical endeavors?
Okay, well, I'm 22 and I've been interested in writing like my whole life. But when I was a teenager, I became like really into writing and also more aware of like things going on in the world and wanting to make a difference. And I also was homeschooled. I started homeschooling in high school. And that was also because school was like, it was hard to get myself to school. So, and I had a few, like some issues, like physically and mental health wise. And I'm talking about being autistic at, some point here. And I didn't, because I was diagnosed with autism just like 2 years ago. So I didn't know I was. And so that was a really hard thing for me. So it was one of the reasons why, I had to leave school, but that was a whole blessing in disguise because it gave me time to find all these interests and passions. And then next thing I knew, I was writing books. I wrote my first book when I was 16 and then I created this. Now I have 5 books. And it was through a program that Jane Goodall has called Roots and Shoots, which allows youth to create a project, about the environment or whatever thing. And that was the theme of my first few books, was caring for the earth and the animals. And I became very into that, as well as music was just a really big outlet for me as well. And I really wanted to, I always wrote songs, but I was like really shy about it and stuff. And it took me a long time to be able to even just like sing in front of people and share any of my writings, especially my music. And so now I'm finally in a place where I've released some songs and I'm continually releasing music, and just being able to like perform and sing and dance a little in front of people feels like really good to be at that point now. And and I'm really glad that I was allowed the space and the right environment for me to really find the things that I love to do and my gifts and everything, and be able to express them.
That's fantastic. Great story. Great background. I love that you talked about, especially when it came to the music, that you talked about sort of always being interested in writing. And I assume that may have implications both in your books, but also in your music. And then you've come to the point where now you're performing in front of people, you're dancing. I went on your website, I saw some YouTube videos of you doing some music videos for your songs. I thought those were great. And what it really made me think of specifically was, if I were somebody, I'm quite a bit older than you now, but if I were somebody who was around your age, maybe a little bit younger, maybe still in high school, or maybe a little bit older, and I was kind of not sure where my passions were going to be, and then I saw you really like just feeling your own music and expressing it so beautifully, and coming out of maybe that shell that you once felt that you were in, I would feel inspired. It would make me feel like it was okay for me to do the same thing. So my first question to you is, do you ever get feedback like that from other people when you're performing, or when you're out in public, or just interacting even with friends or family members? Does anybody ever tell you that you're an inspiration to them to maybe try something that they've been thinking about or feeling passionately about for a while?
Yeah, I do get that. And I think it means so much to me because of the fact that I think I was looking for like people like me. Like there's this sort of, it's not like a stereotype, but that I see most often, very extroverted personalities, especially in like the music and performing. Like they've been doing it since they were like little kids and like put in the industry really young, and they were always extroverted. And I didn't really see that many people that had like stories like mine, where like they were so shy, and where it was like, even though I do think that's probably way more common than not, but like not a lot of people, I feel like, I don't know, for some reason I felt like I couldn't really find enough of people like sharing or talking about that. So I feel now like definitely inspired to want to talk about my journey and everything, so that someone like me, like who I was in the past, would have really meant a lot to hear that, like, because there was a time I thought I would just be like way too scared to do it. And I honestly did not know if I ever would. And now somehow I feel like way more comfortable. And so I'm like, that's, I've inspired myself in that way. But then like, I really hope that anyone that needs that message, and it's great to also be a performer and make people feel things and whatever, but if it adds any deeper meaning to what I'm doing, knowing that it was like it took a lot to get to that point, then that's something I'm really proud of, that I really want to be out there.
That's fabulous. And I'm sure that you are, probably more than people even tell you, but I think it's really wonderful that people take the time to let you know. Because the way you were talking, it made it clear to me that it feeds you, which then becomes circular almost, because the more you're fed by that, the more inspired you are to keep doing it. And that inspires and affects the next person who sees you. So I hope you do continue. I can certainly relate to what you're saying. I have a daughter who I think does not believe that I was ever shy, because I have a podcast now, and I have a job where I meet and interact with people all the time. I make speeches in front of large groups, small groups. I'm just out there. But I really was. And I never thought that this would be something that I would be doing. So I think it is important that you share your story, because it's good for you, and it's probably, again, good for lots of other people too. So congratulations on your success thus far. Let's get into these books, if you don't mind, because I am a big stuffed animal person. I had probably, I don't know, it feels like 200 on my bed growing up when I was a kid. And you do something really special with your books, the ones at least that are specifically about animals, where each book is accompanied by a stuffed animal, correct?
Yes.
Why do you do that?
Well, so when I had the idea for starting a Roots and Shoots project, it was an idea I had with my sister. And who's like 3 years older than me, and so at the time she was still a teenager, and we came up with the name Bears for Cares. And the original idea was just that we were going to have bears that were connected with certain causes, or that we could give to kids, or kids that were really we had all sorts of ideas about it. And then I kind of realized that anyone could have a stuffed animal, but they how does it wrap up with the cause? How do they know that? And that's when I was like, should it come with like a pamphlet, or what's going to explain it? And I, since I was young, would like to write little stories and and so my sister was like, you should write children's books with it. And so it actually started, the original idea was with the stuffed animal, that then
stuffed animal was first.
Book. Yeah, to go with the stuffed animal was the original idea. And that's why it's called, all the books are connected with Bears for Care. So that's where that all came from. And then, so that was the first book, More Beautiful in Heaven, was connected with the first stuffed animal, Barry, we call it, his little white bear, made with organic materials. It's great. But then there were some characters in the book, there's Billy the octopus and Jenny the chimpanzee. And at one point I was given some sort of I wanted to get involved in like, I think I reached out to, there's a organization called Mission Blue connected with Sylvia Earle. And I really wanted to like get involved, and like I was really inspired and wanted to help the oceans and stuff. And I think it was like a pitch to me or something that maybe I could like write something for them or whatever. And I remember being like, thinking, okay, I could write like an article, I could write a whatever. And then it came to me, I was like, I really wanted to think like, what if this could like be a children's book that I write about the oceans? And then I realized there's a character in the book that I was More Beautiful in Heaven that was an octopus. And I was like, what if Billy the octopus gets its own book? And that's about the ocean. And so then I got that idea. And then we were working on a second book, like before More Beautiful in Heaven even came out. Then we started working on a second book, Billy the Octopus, and they wound up coming out at the same time. And I got a stuffed octopus to go with Billy the Octopus. Then I was like, well, I can't leave Jenny out. Jenny should have a book now. So then there's Jenny the chimpanzee with about our connectedness with like chimpanzees, and like Jane Goodall and stuff, but like, yeah, because they're like our closest genetic relatives, and so just how like humans were all connected with the animal world and how animals have feelings, just all these different things I want to cover in the book. And I'd say Jenny's probably a fan favorite out of the stuffed animals. They're all great, but really? People really like Jenny is really huggable. I've had a few different people and like that, like some little kids, but also some like adults or whatever.
I was raising my hand
with Jenny. Just really lovable stuffed animal, but they all are. But Jenny is definitely really like very much so. And then I wound up. I was like getting into writing children's books, so that next time I had an idea, like I wanted to do something maybe around Thanksgiving time. Like I am vegan, so I do like try to avoid eating animals, and I wanted to do a Thanksgiving book that would be, I call it Thanksgiving for the turkeys, and that comes with the stuffed turkey, and it's about having a vegan Thanksgiving. And every year, I go to a sanctuary and I read that with a bunch of turkeys around me, so that's become a whole thing. And then like I now starting to branch out a little bit, I realize there's more I want to talk about than just like the animal rights and the environment. And I had the idea for a book of Friends Lift You Up, which talks about just some of the hard like relationships you have in school, like bullying and stuff, and bullying between friends specifically, because I just think that wasn't. And so now I'm just like covering just whatever theme, whatever thing I'm thinking. Like,
it sounds like you found a really great sort of platform or venue to get your messages across.
Yeah,
and you also seem like you're just the type of person who has a tremendous amount of a large number of ideas that are constantly flowing in your mind.
Yes.
So establishing the platform is great because now you have like a way to get it out there. We're going to take a short break. I told you this was going to go fast. So we're going to take a quick break. But when we come back, I would love to get a little bit more into these latest books, the ones about friends lifting you up and anti-bullying and that kind of thing. And then we have some more questions about your music and what you're going to be doing in the near future out in person where people can find you. So this is 1 in 36, the weekly talk show on topics related to autism spectrum disorder. I'm your host, Eliza Bozensky, and we'll be right back.
Okay, forest animals, today is a new day. Kids are coming to the forest, and it's up to us to make their visit a good one. Sparrow.
Yes?
Have you practiced the most popular bird songs for the year?
Of course.
Catchy. I like it. Okay, River.
Dude.
How's the temperature?
It's a refreshing 52 degrees, man. Perfect for a little riverside shoeless relaxation.
Ah, good. Owl, you here? Course. Who's asking? I am. Look, you know the drill. Sleep during the day, scare the kids at night. Perfect. I love my job. Oak Tree?
Sup?
Still in the same place I left you last year. That's what I like. Consistency.
Well, it's not like I'm going anywhere for the next couple hundred years.
I know. I love it. Turtle.
He's not here yet, man.
He's late every morning. You'd think he would have learned by now to leave the night before our meetings. Okay, Squirrel. Has anybody seen Mr. Squirrel?
The forest has been preparing just for you. Visit a forest near you today. To learn more about cool things to do in the forest, visit discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
And now, 1 in 36 continues on 100.7 WHUD. This is a weekly community affairs program presented by the Anderson Center for Autism.
Welcome back to 1 in 36, the weekly talk show on topics related to autism spectrum disorder. I'm your host, Eliza Bozensky, and I'm talking today with Lotus Kay. Lotus has been giving us a lot of information about her ideas, her books, her 5 books so far, I think. We'll see if there are more. And thank you for explaining, I guess answering a big question, which is which came first, the book or the stuffed animal? And for you, it was the stuffed animal.
Yeah.
and I just want to touch on your breadth of ideas first. I love that you sort of started with, animal activism, animal rights, and caring for the environment, and then moving into the environment. And then the Thanksgiving book strikes a chord with me only because I am not vegan, but I remember Thanksgivings, or a few in my younger days, where my cousins were vegetarian for a while, or maybe vegan, and we hosted a big Thanksgiving at our house every year. And the couple of years that they came that they weren't eating turkey, nobody knew what to do. And we were a very close, loving family, but nobody else had gone through this. Nobody knew what to do. They were young. They were sort of in maybe middle school, high school age. I think a book like yours probably would have helped us all to be a little bit more understanding and a little bit more aware of maybe why and also how to not compromise or have any feelings of compromising somebody who might want a super traditional Thanksgiving while being really welcoming and open to our loved ones who weren't eating turkey that year. So do you get feedback that people use it for that purpose?
Yeah, in the back page, I have back pages of my book. So there's a story, and then I'll have like information kind of in the back. And so in the back of the Thanksgiving book, it literally has a page on like how to do a vegan Thanksgiving and alternatives to wherever there might be, animal products in it. So, definitely if anyone's confused about how to have a vegan Thanksgiving, it shows you how to do that. And every year Thanksgiving's really good and really yummy for me because, right, we've figured it out. So, yeah, and no, it is good. I've definitely had people, even some of the people I was working with or whatever, because they work on the book, be like, I'm not going to have turkey this year on Thanksgiving. And so I'm like, yeah, like that's a cool thing.
I love that. So I would sum that up as saying you offer the why and the how.
Yes.
Which is often one or the other is missing from a lot of resources. So that's really great and very personal perspective. Tell us a little bit more about how you moved into more of the social stuff, the anti-bullying, the friends lift you up. Is that, if it's not too personal, I mean, is that based on some of your own personal experiences? I know you talked about leaving school and being homeschooled and how that became a blessing, but it sounded like maybe it was a decision based on some tough experiences. So is that something that you're like really focused on now?
Yeah, there was a lot in certain experiences I had growing up and with certain friendships. And yes, it was definitely based on my own experience. And I think maybe I was looking for some sort of even like closure or something and when I wrote the book, it was also before I was also diagnosed with autism. So like that really helps explain why certain things were happening, but I really didn't understand. And so, when I wrote Friends Lift You Up, it was definitely just me looking for an outlet for expressing, and I was really just affected by certain, just like friendships. And like, I guess I did early on in life have issues with certain like relationships or whatever. And I feel like when people talk about bullying, it's very like stereotypical, like as if like someone throwing you against a locker and calling you whatever. And like, for me, like, it wasn't even like as much bullying. It was just like, I don't know why I always felt like I was on the outside. And so this character, April and Tyler is the story. And I think I really put myself into the character April, like from the first scene or whatever, she's kind of like sitting by herself and, and then she makes this friend or whatever, but then it's kind of a complicated friendship. But I think I just this feeling of just like being kind of like, I just always felt like a little removed from the group and didn't really know why and didn't know if I was being purposely left out or like whatever because then that would feel more like bullying when maybe it wasn't purposeful. But that was a hard book to do because it felt like it was a hard thing to talk about or whatever, but then I'm glad I did it and everything. And then even and now when I wrote the back pages of the book, but there's more information or whatever, I did some tips on like how to prevent bullying or how to be a good friend. But I also share a little author's note where I do say that I'm autistic and everything. And then that it's interesting. So when I first wrote the book, I didn't know I was autistic, but by the time it came out, because it takes like about, like I wrote the book when I was like 18, but then I found it at 19. So by the time the book came out, it had been like a year. So I was able to write that note in the end. And there was a lot of different factors in why I had to leave school. And that was definitely one of the things, was having difficulties with like just dynamics and stuff. And it's a very common thing for, so yeah.
Yeah. That is very unique. I think the idea that you started a project that was sort of cathartic to begin with, I think you said, and maybe looking for some closure, and then partway through gained a piece of information, just an additional piece of information about yourself that maybe doesn't sound like it completely changed your perspective. It just sort of added one more piece into sort of figuring it out and your experience. So I love that you shared that. I mean, I can say just from the families that I speak to on a regular basis at Anderson, I used to be a teacher also a long time ago. I'm a social worker. So many people that I've interacted over the years of my career, whether at Anderson or other places, would benefit from a book like that. And I want to just piggyback on something that you started to talk about with bullying. Bullying has gotten a lot more attention recently, which is important. I think there's all sorts of bullying. It hasn't gone away. It hasn't stopped. Sadly, has led to some really tragic outcomes for a lot of people. However, I think there is a kind of bullying that's sort of quiet and harder to notice, which is that, like, kind of what you talked about, like, okay, you can sort of mainstream in school. Some people call it masking. You can kind of get by. But is there something going on just below the surface that is harder to perceive?
Yeah, it's like subtle things that maybe don't mean so like anything to the other kids. They might not even remember doing it or remember it, but like to that one person that they're like doing that one little, even if the subtle thing, it can do a lot to someone or whatever. And also the type of bullying, like I wanted to cover friends because sometimes it's hard when it's a friend that's being kind of mean to you sometimes or whatever. I think that happens a lot. And so that's really a lot of what the book is about is like your friends should lift you up. Your friends should support you. You shouldn't feel like your friends are talking about you or behind your back, or like that's such a common dynamic. Yep. And we've normalized that and having kind of frenemies. And so just looking back, I would just, there's definitely just certain friendships or whatever that, were pretty damaging. But it's hard because you think this is my best friend, but yet they're actually like, not treating you the way that I think a real good friend should. And that's the thing. Yeah. And that's,
I think I like the phrasing you used. And I would just add that, one of the things I've always told my kids, and when I was teaching, I would always talk about is your friends should make you feel good.
Yeah.
If you're hanging out with people who just generally make you feel bad, reach out for some help. Ask somebody who you trust. Talk to a parent. Talk to a teacher. Talk to, I guess, look for things that you can believe in yourself. So these are all positive messages, Lotus. This is great. I'm so glad that there's somebody that you're out there. And hopefully there are others, but now I get to talk to you. And you're out there and you're doing this work. And it's really wonderful to know that. We are out of time almost, but we have enough time for you to share some places where people can follow you or find your work, see your music videos, check out, more about you. And also, I thought that I heard that you're doing something either are you involved in the Dutchess County Fair this year in August?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to be doing a book reading there.
Great.
I think that's August 24th. Hopefully I'm getting that date right.
Sounds right.
Yeah.
Sounds right. But I'm sure they have a website, and you can also, and do you have a website or social media or any way that people follow you?
Yes. I have lotuskay.com. So that's where all the information will be. I also, my usernames on social media are usually Lotus, the letter R, and Kay, Lotus RK. So that's what I am, like, on Instagram and Twitter. I also have like Lotus Kay Music. You can follow my music specifically on Instagram. I also have Bears for Cares as a website, like .com, but also as on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And also I have a TikTok, and that's been the place where I've really found community and shared a lot on being autistic. So like you can find me on TikTok. I'm just like talking all things autism and my experience there. So so that's well.
Great. Yeah. Anderson just found TikTok. I think we're on there, but recently. So maybe we'll connect. We'll find a way to connect. If you're listening and you didn't catch all of the ways to follow Lotus, we will put those in when we post this podcast. You'll see them on our website, andersoncenterforautism.org, and also on our social media, which is where we'll be sharing it. And Lotus, hopefully you'll share it as well, get the word out even more. But really, Lotus Kay, it has been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I am just thrilled to know that you exist in the world and that you are doing what you're doing. I hope that you'll come out, or we'll see each other maybe at the Dutchess County Fair during your reading. But really, congratulations on finding a way to really turn your passions into, without compromising, it sounds like, what you want to do, but turning them also into something that has the ability to impact so many in a much broader community. So thank you for sharing your story and your background and being on the show today.
Thank you.
This is 1 in 36, the weekly talk show on topics related to autism spectrum disorder. I'm your host, Eliza Bozensky, and remember, Anderson cares.
You've been listening to 1 in 36, a weekly presentation of the Anderson Center for Autism. Join them for another edition of the show at this time next weekend.